Yo, what's up? For everybody checking out the cave, we had X to the Z Xzibit stop by. You seen him on Empire, but he stopped by with the fellas to talk about fatherhood.
All right, y'all. We got my man, actor, rapper, West Coast
now.
phenomenon,
Yeah.
X to
Come on
Z in the
now.
house.
Thank you, man. Put some respect on it.
Only,
Put some respect on it.
only, man.
So listen, y'all.
What's up, brother?
There was an article that just came out that challenged this whole notion that black dads are not fathers, which I think is an old myth anyway. But it got me to thinking, all of y'all are dads. How has your father or the guy that was a father figure in your life impacted who you are and how you've raised your kids?
Got it.
Man, well, my dad was a Marine, and he was really tough on, me and, how he used the way he was trained in the military to do that and raise me, because my mother passed when I was really young. I was like 9 years old. So the way I translate that into the way I raise my children, I got two boys. And so, my father was very, structured, corporal punishment, but there's three principles that I learned from him that I use for my children. That is being a stand-up guy, being responsible and accountable for your behavior. You know what I'm saying? Those principles are important. Now, how we got there are two different ways.
Right.
My dad was very, hard on me. You know what I'm saying? As we all probably grew up. You know what I'm saying? But my kids are no way close to the way I was raised and ready for the street. You know what I'm saying? So they're not supposed to start where we started.
That's right.
So, you know what I'm saying? They're supposed to start on a whole new platform and be able to go to a whole new way, have a new set of problems, not the same ones I had. So that's basically what I learned from my father and how I translated into raising my children.
That's good.
I mean, my story is crazy because it's, it starts out with the first part of your question in terms of black dads not being there, because I don't know my real father.
Wow.
But what God does
That's right.
is he made sure that void was filled. So the man that I know as my father, the man who is my father, was there from day one.
Wow.
And never missed a beat.
Wow.
Never missed a day. You know what I'm saying? Assume that responsibility.
Yeah.
And just that, the essence of that alone, of just being there.
Yep.
And being whatever you're supposed to be for your children. It alone, you know what I'm saying, is enough for me. Man.
It ain't no handbook to this shit. That's the first thing I want to say. As a father, there's no handbook to this shit.
Yeah.
I thank my father. I love my father. He did the best he could. He's a loving dude. He was strict. He was stern, but he wasn't mean. The only thing about my father I would say is I wish he was a little bit more communicative. However, those are things that I learned. You use your parent as a template to raise your children, and all the things I feel like he fell short, I'm gonna try to do different with my children, although I'm not the perfect dad. I try my best, you know what I mean? I tell my son all the time, man, like, we learning this together. I'm growing with you. So, again, how I deal with my oldest son is just like you. It's not the same as how I deal with my youngest son, because I was 22 when my oldest was born, and my youngest son, I was 33. So, my mind state was different, so I'm gonna deal with him differently. However, I still take a lot of the principles that I learned from my father, and basically, you just got to think about how you wish your daddy would have raised you. I love my kids, reluctantly. I love them. I tell my son all the time, you ain't even feel that good coming out the tube. If it wasn't for the fact that your mom was making meatloaf that night,
Come on, man, what?
He just said reluctantly.
Reluctantly. He used a heavy word, too.
Nah, look here, man. Kids is crazy like that, man. You just come out your mama womb and make me love you like I'm supposed to be selling dope and riding spinners. But now you got me making dinner and lunch and putting together G.I. Joe houses and shit. How dare you make me love you? How dare you make me love you?
Soften up.
Oh
Yo,
my
it's crazy with my pops, because my dad is the most decorated athlete in the history of Guatemala.
Come on now, son.
Went to the Olympics.
Speak on the gene pool.
And I'm
What
so
happened,
proud
though?
of him, right? Look.
You said what happened?
You stop that. And I'm so proud of him,
bump
right?
me.
And I also learned that my dad was an incredible father to a lot of kids. He just wasn't He just wasn't with your pot. And it was funny because I had those lonely nights, man, in Chicago with my mom, just trying to figure it out, because he's on TV, he's in magazines, he was teaching across, look, on the south side of Chicago. He was there. He moved to Chicago from Guatemala, wasn't with me, right? So then my mom, we had this moment where she just was like, son, you gotta realize this is his loss, okay? And this is exactly what you don't do when you become a father one day. And now that my son, he just turned 8 Saturday.
Turn up.
You know, I go overboard, man. I go overboard. With him being in Miami, me being in California, he'll call me at, you know, it's 6, 7 school time. It's 3, 4 in the morning here in LA and FaceTime, and I'm about to bed. I know you're asleep, Dad, but I just wanted to tell you. And it's a beautiful thing, man.
For me, my dad had 4th stage cancer for 7 years.
Wow.
Which just doesn't normally happen. Like
Right.
normally 4th stage and you counting down. I watched him beat back lung cancer, only to have the doctor say, we see the cancer spread to your spinal cord.
Shit.
And this dude looked out the window, took a deep breath, and the next day he was gone.
Wow.
Like he went out just like a G. And
Right.
for the last 2 years of his life, he lived with me and my wife.
Wow.
So my dad was legally blind. He researched these new glasses that they were doing experiments on that people with a certain level of legal blindness could use to drive during the day. And he got in the program and started driving during the day on his own.
Wow.
Nobody ever knew he had cancer because he didn't talk about it.
Man.
And so what I learned from him, Slink, was when life gave him an excuse not to keep living, he lived harder.
Yep.
And so I learned more about life watching this dude in the last 2 years of his life than I did about being sick or about cancer. And so for my kids, I'm like, I could put you in the best private school. I can make sure that you know how to speak 3 languages. I can make sure you know how to do this. But if you don't wake up hungry for life, because you've been blessed with it, then it don't matter where you go. And so whether it's my baby who's at Spelman or whether it's my 11-month-old who just like, Daddy, it's how do I make sure they know that every single day you wake up, just take life. No matter what it serves you, and just go hard with it.
I think that myth is quite the opposite. I mean, I even though we may not be perfect, I'm definitely there for my children. I love my children. I raise them. I discipline them. I make them prepared to be a productive part of society. And that's my job. You know, I don't get a prize. I don't want balloons. I don't want a slap on the back. I don't need that.
You don't deserve it. You don't need it.
Right, exactly.
But that's the dope thing, man. Like, I want to be a revolutionary dad. And what that means is, like, I asked my dad once, I'm like, Dad, did you and Grandpa talk the way you and me talk? He's like, nah. He said, I would go out to the garage and sit there and wait for him to ask me to pass him the wrench. And that was the sum total of our conversation. Like, who my dad was to me was revolutionary from who my grandfather was to him. And so my job is to just be revolutionary to my baby.
Say it again.
That's what
to who my daddy was to me.
You know, that's what it is. You know, it's crazy too because, you know, I got a lot of gems from my mom on fatherhood. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And my mom, her whole twist was, you know, we not from this country. So I work this hard, I bust my ass so that you can have more and so that your life can be easier. You don't have to struggle the same way we struggled over in Panama.
But something you said real quick with Slink is interesting to me because a lot of us travel. And it's hard being on the road when you got babies at the house, especially when they're young. Tank, I mean, and you go hard, man.
I got babies in a few different places, so you know, it's
I got kids.
I got kids in different area codes. Area codes. Kids. What I'm trying to say is that it's tough.
Oh no!
It's tough on a man.
I need another drink on that, man.
Toast to what we got. Toast to what we got.
Salute.